This week I'm reviewing a game that I've been meaning to play and finish for a long time, and so I figured, what the hell, why not review it for my first October review? Truthfully, I really wanted to play Stubbs the Zombie, but I couldn't get it running on my PC. I'll tinker with it later to possibly get it done for next year, but until then, we're stuck with Alien Breed 2, Assault, an over-the-top run-and-gun game set on an abandoned spacecraft that has been overtaken by an alien horde. And before I begin with the story, I will mention that this is the first game I've played and reviewed with my Steam controller. Yeah, I broke down and bought one. It can be a bit finicky with the touchpad, but it does the job pretty well. Maybe one day I'll do a small little review on it, now that I have a bit more time with it under my belt. But that'll be for another time. On to the story. When you first begin, you'll be given the story. From what I understand, Alien Breed 1 was an old Amiga game, and one that had some interesting cheat codes. Check out the Guru Larry Bundy video on offensive cheat codes if you want to be educated on that. If you care about the backstory, it's there, although I feel it was a bit too fragmented to really make much sense. You play as a guy named Conrad, who is of course a soldier on this spacecraft. Everything is exploding and Conrad must find his way around. You'll be given several objectives, and you'll follow checkpoints as they lead you to where you must go. Thankfully, that mini-map in the corner is helpful with showing these checkpoints, which adjust as you progress on, along with enemies. Perhaps I'm getting too far ahead of myself since I haven't really finished with the story. Or did I? Honestly, it's not that interesting. There are logs that you can find that attempt to flesh out the story and give you some more info on it, mostly on the enemies that you encounter, but I just didn't feel like bothering to read most of it, as much of it is done on a small portion of the screen and lengthy. Normally, I don't mind reading walls of text, but in such a small area with it being nothing but science? Pass. So what about these enemy types? Other than the occasional sentry gun that goes rogue, they're alien creatures. They're your standard extraterrestrial designed enemies. You have small ones that just jump at you and explode. The standard looking ones that just run at you and swipe. Creatures that spit poison at you. You know. Standard fare for these types of games. It's really a shame that designs seem to be a bit uninspired, because the game is running on the Unreal 3 engine, so the graphics look fantastic. In addition, with a dark atmosphere and the zoomed out camera, it's difficult to actually see the enemies and marvel on how gorgeous they look. Since I'm on the topic of graphics, I may as well touch on that now. The ship actually does look like an abandoned craft, with explosions, fires, and darkness engulfing it. The light that does shine are often construed as emergency lighting, with monitor screens and plasma tubes giving off ambient light. At least you have a flashlight attached to all of your weapons, and there's no energy meter that you have to worry about for that, so you will always have some light on at all times, even if it doesn't give you a lot of range. So let me move on to the gameplay and controls. Again, it's a top-down shooter. For the most part, the game is linear, with you getting objectives and once you clear it, you're given another. Sometimes backtracking will be necessary, but then doors will typically open up, giving you a shortcut to the area that you need to get back to. The minimap will help you show where you should be heading, and enemies pop up as red dots. That's the gameplay in a nutshell. But how do you kill out your enemies? Well, typical PC controls are used to the W, S, A, and D keys to move around, and the mouse to aim and shoot. Since I was using the Steam controller, I used the analog stick to move and the touchpad to shoot. Using this system made my aiming a bit less accurate, but it did well nonetheless. I can't remember the actual buttons, but there are keys to press to attack with a melee hit, switch weapons, and switch items. Items consist of a bunch of different supportive gear. You can find medkits in various sizes. There's a few different grenade types. Armor increases your damage resistance, but only for a limited time. You can also place sentries of your own in certain power points, and if you see one of these, you can expect to be bombarded by a bunch of enemies soon. It's all simple to use, especially when using any sort of controller, which honestly, I would recommend. You're probably wondering about the guns you get to equip. The main one is your standard assault rifle that carries a 200 round magazine. It's fairly accurate and has a pretty good rate of fire. You'll also always have access to a 30 round pistol, which has infinite ammo but really lacks firing power. Next you'll probably grab the shotgun, which naturally has a punch to it, but takes time between shots. The flamethrower isn't too bad, which is surprising because most games like this have an underpowered flamethrower that just eats up ammo. I think there was a rocket launcher I didn't use too. Overall, there's a decent selection of weaponry, but you'll probably stick with the shotgun and rifle the most, because they are the most effective. As you're running around this dark and creepy ship, you encounter stuff that can be looted. These bodies, lockers, and other containers contain ammo, items, or even credits, the game's currency. You can use these credits at the in-text terminals, which also double as save points. You can buy ammo, items, and also upgrades to your items' weapons, such as damage boosts, reload speed decreases, and stuff like that. Items and ammo are in limited quantities at these stations though, so you can't hoard all the ammo you want. Plus, there are maximum capacities for your ammunition. My biggest complaint about these terminals is that they are incredibly spread out at times. This isn't necessarily a problem. My problem is with the fact that this is the only way you can save. I've already played for nearly an hour and not reached one of these checkpoints. I get it, I've played many RPGs where dying would set you back to the last save point, but most of these games allowed us to save at any time, or right before important battles. Then again, maybe there were checkpoints before bosses in this game. I never died at one to find out. And by one, I've only seen one boss, but I've only made it around the end of level 3, so maybe there's more near the end. And that's what brings me to why I just stopped playing. By this time, the game was becoming redundant. The environments all look the same, so each room looks way too similar. The enemies, again, lacked real character. But the worst is the time that you have to escort Mia, the ship's AI, across the ship so that she can access the terminal. Of course she doesn't have any weapons, but there's two things that pissed me off. For one, she was awful at following me at times. Secondly, anytime she spoke, it was by the text on the screen only. This can get fairly annoying when you realize she's saying something but can't read it because there's aliens trying to get a taste of your face. But the true reason I stopped is because I encountered a glitch where she just wouldn't follow me. I tried shooting her. I tried running around the adjacent rooms. I tried reloading. Nothing. So at this point, I gave up, which really doesn't bother me since I was losing interest steadily. It's sad, really. Overall, Alien Breed 2 isn't a bad game, but it just feels a bit mediocre. It's a pretty game, but the story isn't very interesting, and neither are the enemies. If you can get it cheap and you like top-down shooters, by all means, give it a shot. I just don't know if I'll actually get around to finishing it. Final score? 7 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.